Hello, this is Courtney with C. Clark Creative. Thanks for stopping by. I have two cards today using some leftover products. Here are the Mama Elephant grid window and circular grids, and when you use these you end up with a bunch of circles and squares, which I am using today. Just those extra little bits. I'm pulling out some Distress Oxide sprays and Distress spray stains, and I'm going to have a little bit of fun with these. I'm starting with Antique Linen, the Distress Oxide spray and Antique Linen. I'm also using ground espresso. And then in the Distress Spray Stains, I'm using tea dye and Vintage Photo. What I'm doing here is I'm just spraying in a random order around these, not trying to be very prescriptive with it, and just getting some of the spray down. And then I'll pick some of these up and dip them back into the ink where there's extra ink. And then I take this watercolor paper and I start blotting up some of the extra paper, and it transfers some additional of the spray stain onto some of the pieces already. I get an awesome panel, which I don't think I show this at all, but this panel on this watercolor paper ends up gorgeous as well once it dries. But I just kind of play around, a little messy, doesn't matter. These sprays work great. So I do this, I let them dry thoroughly. Now normally when I'm using these sprays, I'm using watercolor paper, but this is just Neenah 80-pound cardstock. So keep that in mind if you're using spare bits like I am. It is going to saturate this paper a lot easier, so don't overspray for sure. I have a scrap piece of cardstock from My Favorite Things. This is natural 80-pound cardstock. And I'm stamping some sentiments from Simon Says Stamp. This is their Stamptember release. Clean Line Gratitude stamp set, and I have the coordinating dies as well. And I'm stamping in Sparrow ink. That brown matches perfectly with these distress sprays. So the smaller sentiment strips, I'm just cutting by hand using my Tim Holtz trimmer here. And then I have Grateful, and then I go back with some extra and stamp Thank You as well. So I've already die cut the Grateful. I go and die cut the Thank You as well. And then I cut card panels from the extra bit of that natural cardstock that I have as well. Cut 2 additional of each die cut sentiment, and then I use Gina K Connect Glue, liquid glue, to adhere all the layers together just to get a little bit more substantial sentiment for my cards. I do not do extra layers on the sentiment strips. So I get those adhered, and then I've got my circle and squares are all dry. So then I start just playing around with how I'm going to lay these out a little bit, put them on the cards, see which circles look best to each other, try to keep the color variation mixed up throughout. So just kind of playing, and I decide on the circular geometric pattern all together, and then the squares where there's a little bit of a border, space border between all of them. Mark the center of the card and start going from there. So I like to glue these straight down flat onto the card. I'm just using my tweezers just to help me with alignment. I feel a little bit better with the little metal tips rather than my fingers. Just can get in there a little bit better. Adhere this to the card base using more liquid glue. And then I'll pop up the sentiment with scrapbook.com adhesive shapes. And then a little bit, the small sentiment strip, grateful for you. I had also popped that up as well. So the circles are flat onto the card, but then the sentiment pops up a little. So again, I'm doing pretty much the exact same thing with the squares. I'm marking the center, and then visually, just by eye, I start placing my squares. I start with the middle, adhering with liquid glue, moving to the edges, and just keeping the alignment by eye. I'm not getting too specific on the measurements there. So here we go, the last square on, using liquid glue to get this panel onto my A2 card base. More adhesive squares to pop up this sentiment. And then I have one last finishing touch that I am doing for these two cards. I'm taking my Distress Spray, add a little bit of water just to give it a little bit more liquid, and then put one paintbrush in, and then use another paintbrush to tap some speckles onto my cards. By using the exact same spray stain, just helps keep everything tight together. And with that, these two cards are complete. So hope you've got some spare parts, some spare die cuts that you can use to create some cards of your own, and pull out your distress sprays if you haven't used them in a while. Remember, they're so fun to work with, and they have just amazingly beautiful results. So thank you for joining me. Hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.